Here's more wrestling news for December 10th, 2022. And we're starting off with Charlotte Flair, and since May, the former women's champion has been absent from TV and hasn't appeared since losing the Smackdown Women's Championship to Ronda Rousey. There's been a lot of speculation about her future, and even a time when fans believed she should join her husband Andrade in AEW, but the Queen should be back on TV soon. In The Observer, it is reported that WWE's creative team is making plans for Charlotte's return, but there's no word on what those plans entail. It was just last week that Flair herself teased her in-ring return, sharing a picture of her wrestling boots on Instagram. Some have speculated that Flair will be part of the Women's Rumble match and possibly the first two-time winner of the match, and it may not be long before WWE's most decorated female is back on TV. Since June, Cody Rhodes has been on the shelf with a torn pectoral, an injury that seriously derailed WWE's plans for the American Nightmare. Recently, a photo surfaced online of Cody looking jacked and ready to get back in the ring, and now WWE has given their biggest tease yet of his imminent return. As Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select reports, WWE was in Los Angeles this week and filmed a commercial for WrestleMania 39. This film shoot saw The Miz lock up with Rhodes, or at least someone who is dressed up exactly like the former three-time AEW TNT champion. It was added that The Miz's wife Maurice also attended this shoot, but it's unclear whether she was actually used or just went to support her husband. It was also reported that WWE fully expects to have Cody back in time for WrestleMania, which a source at WWE said was never really in doubt. When Rhodes was first injured, it was said he'd be out for 9 months, but between this commercial, Rhodes looking healed, and rumors of a Royal Rumble return, we imagine to see the American Nightmare wrestling again in a matter of weeks. Over to AEW now, as Miro continues to be missing from TV, despite fans wanting to see him back. It's been over 3 months since Miro last competed at All Out, and there's not even been a mention of him on TV. This week, it was reported that Miro is ready to wrestle, but creative has nothing for him, but that may not entirely be the case. In a rebuttal, Dave Meltzer reports that before Full Gear, AEW's creative team had an idea for Miro, but that he immediately turned the idea down. AEW's creative team decided it was better to keep Miro off TV until after Full Gear, and both sides are said to be in talks again. There's no word on what Miro said no to, but it was bad enough for the former TNT champion that he'd rather sit on the shelf, and it remains to be seen when, if ever, he's back in an AEW ring. Since June, Jeff Hardy has been suspended from all AEW programming after being charged with his third DUI in under a decade. Hardy will have to prove that he can be sober in the long term to have any chance of wrestling for Tony Khan again, but there is an update on the charismatic enigma. Speaking during the latest episode of his Extreme Life podcast, Matt Hardy gave an update on his brother's condition, saying, "He's doing exactly what he needs to be doing to get where he needs to be in life. More or less, we just have to get these legal issues behind him before we can move forward. So that's kind of where we're at with Jeff. We're hoping that happens sooner rather than later. He seems to be in a really good place. It's very nice and refreshing to see." The legal issues Matt is referring to are the various charges against Jeff, the most serious of which being his DUI charge. If convicted, Hardy could face a maximum 5 years in prison, as the popular but problematic wrestler's future remains uncertain. 2022 has easily been the most difficult year for AEW, from Cody Rhodes leaving to countless injuries to the All Out fiasco, and now things have gotten worse for Tony Khan. AEW currently has a deal with Warner Media, which will expire at the end of next year, and now one prominent name is gone from the company. Variety reports that Nancy Daniels is one of many to part ways with Warner Media this week, and if the name sounds familiar, it's because Tony Khan mentioned her during the AEW Double or Nothing 2022 post-show media scrum. Calling Daniels a strong leader and really cool, the now former Warner Media exec was one of the biggest supporters for AEW since the company was founded in 2019. Warner Media is said to be happy with AEW despite the promotion's fluctuating ratings, which have been on the downward spiral for some time now compared to 2021 and even 2020. Daniels' departure means Tony Khan will have one less ally when he goes to renegotiate his deal with Warner Media next year, negotiations which will affect everybody on the roster. We've got an update in the Tammy Sytch situation, as the controversial Hall of Famer is continuing to wait for her day in court for the manslaughter charge against her. Sytch has remained in jail since May for her alleged role in the death of a 75-year-old driver in March, and now the former Sonny will be staying put. PW Insider reports that Sytch's own legal team has filed for her long-delayed pretrial hearing to be pushed back again, a request that has been granted by the courts. Now Sytch's hearing will take place on January 23rd of next year, though her legal defense did try to get it pushed to February. In August, Sytch waived the right to a speedy trial, but her now second legal team has insisted that this isn't an attempt to delay a prosecution, and with the former manager facing possibly decades in prison if convicted, we'll keep following her case closely for further updates. More from AEW now, as Ricky Starks will challenge MJF for the AEW World Championship next week and had some choice words for the devil himself. During this week's Dynamite, Starks vowed to slap that mole off your neck, stomp and to MJF, and take the title, but this wasn't the original plan. During Wrestling Observer Live, Brian Alvarez explained how Starks had a promo written down which was not used, and that he instead went off script. Thankfully, this example of going off script hasn't led to any issues backstage, unlike when Hangman Adam Page had his off-the-cuff remark about CM Punk, which would ultimately cause Punk to end his career with AEW. While Starks had some fiery comments, MJF is the heavy favorite to retain in his first title defense, but this week goes to show the creative freedoms that AEW has that aren't afforded in WWE. October 2020, Kylie Rae missed Impact Wrestling's Bound for Glory event, which she later explained as due to issues with her mental health. After a break from wrestling, Kylie would sign with the NWA last year, but took another hiatus from wrestling, and now the young wrestler has caught the eye of WWE. According to PW Insider, Kylie Rae was part of a tryout in the Performance Center yesterday, and these tryouts will run until the end of this week. Kylie wasn't the only notable name in Orlando, as former MLW star KC Navarro was also at the tryouts after announcing in September that he was a free agent. While attending the tryouts does not guarantee either wrestler a job with WWE, we imagine the company will consider the fan base both wrestlers have, and we'll have to see if Kylie, Navarro, or if any other wrestler who tries out this week earns a contract from Stephanie McMahon. And we're ending today with Smackdown, as Kurt Angle featured heavily on the show for his birthday, but he wasn't the only Olympian who made his presence felt. In a backstage segment, Olympic gold medalist Gable Steveson also appeared and had a brief segment with Angle and Braun Strowman. Steveson signed with WWE in 2021, mere weeks after his Olympic gold medal victory in the Tokyo Summer Games, and after speculation he'd sign with AEW or possibly try his hand at UFC. While Steveson is now signed to WWE, he has yet to compete, and it was reported a few months back that he isn't showing the level of progression the company had hoped to see from him at this point. The brother of NXT's Damon Kemp, Steveson was a huge signing for WWE, arguably the biggest of the NIL program. And after this week's Smackdown, it remains to be seen when the Raw drafted superstar will actually wrestle. That's our news for today, guys. Please watch our previous video, 15 WWE wrestlers who passed away in 2022.